Good morning, students. Today's topic is on micturition and cystometrogram. The learning objectives are micturition, definition, and the functional anatomy of bladder, and then innervation of bladder, and physiology of micturition, that is micturition reflex, how the bladder is filled, that is demonstrated by cystometrogram, and how the bladder is emptied, and that's by nervous reflex or otherwise called micturition reflex, and the higher centers of micturition, so which controls the micturition. So lastly, the applied aspects like atonic bladder, automatic bladder, neurogenic bladder, and nocturnal enuresis. So first we will see the functional anatomy of bladder, urinary bladder and urethra. So coming to the gross anatomy, external features are it's a hollow, muscular, viscous organ for urine. It holds urine and it is pyramidal in shape, having apex, base and three surfaces. Neck is the lowest part, continuous as urethra. Okay, so the neck will continue as urethra. And interior of the bladder, the mucosa shows irregular folds. The interior mucosa shows irregular folds and smooth trigone. So trigone is a triangular area. It is having the smooth surface. Rest of all, it is having irregular folds. And the structure of bladder, its wall contains three layers: outer serous, middle smooth muscle and inner mucous membrane. Okay, so if we see the structure, the wall of the bladder, it is having three layers: outer serous, middle smooth muscle and inner mucus. So mucous membrane is having transitional epithelium. It stretches when distends and it is a complete barrier for fluid and electrolytes. And it is having glycosaminoglycan barrier that prevents bacterial adherence. Okay, so urinary tract infection or urinary bladder infection is the most common condition which is seen in many of the children, adults. Okay, so that's why this inner layer mucous membrane is having a glycosaminoglycan barrier that prevents the bacterial adherence. Though even though it's having bladder is having this barrier, many people will face this urinary bladder or urinary tract infection problem. So this is a urinary bladder picture grossly in the males. So you can see the parts. These are the ureters, lateral umbilical ligaments. These are the irregular folds or rugae and urethral openings. Okay, so inside here two openings are there, no? So these are the urethral openings. So the ureters will come and open here inside. And then this is the center of trigone. So this area is the trigone which is having the smooth surface, and this part is the neck, and in the neck part it is having internal urethral sphincter, and this is the prostate gland, and here we have the external urethral sphincter in the urogenital diaphragm, and this is the prostatic urethra, the middle part, the part which is inside the prostate gland is called the prostatic urethra. So you will be knowing in detail about this bladder anatomy in your anatomy lectures. So the muscular layer of the urinary bladder, it is called detrusor muscle. It is arranged in interlacing longitudinal, circular and spiral bundles, and it is responsible for emptying of the bladder. So remember the muscular layer which is comprised of smooth muscle or detrusor muscle, which is responsible for emptying of the bladder. And coming to the urethra and its sphincters, so the male urethra is 20 centimeters long. You can see here male urethra is 20 centimeters long, and it is having three parts: prostatic, membranous and penile part. So membranous part is surrounded by the external sphincters. So here you can see the membranous part is surrounded by the external sphincters. So this is the internal sphincter at the neck area, and this is the prostatic, and this is the membranous, and the remaining part is penile urethra. So the membrane, next is female urethra, which is only 3.8 to 4 centimeter long. It is very short compared to males. So it traverses the external sphincters. So the female urethra traverses the external sphincters and it lies in front of the vagina. So it is very short. So only it is covered by the external sphincters. And the internal sphincters, these are circular smooth muscle fiber in the area of the neck. It prevents emptying up to the pressure of the threshold level. It prevents emptying. This internal sphincter main function is prevents emptying up to the pressure of threshold level. When the threshold level is reached, then only the stimulation for the micturition comes. So till that time, these internal sphincters prevents the emptying of the bladder. And external sphincters are at the level of urogenital diaphragm encircled by a ring of voluntary muscles. It provides voluntary control. So even though the micturition reflex is started, the urgency for urination is present, then also the external sphincters have the capacity to hold urine. That is called voluntary control. So it is controlled by higher center. And next, coming to the innervation of the bladder, we will see first motor innervations or efferent innervations. So these are three innervations: parasympathetic, which is from S2, S3, S4, and sympathetic from T11 to L2, and somatic motor innervation. So parasympathetic innervation carry motor impulses to the bladder, and they contract the bladder and inhibit the internal sphincter. Okay, so these actions you should remember. Parasympathetic arises from S2 to S4. So these will carry motor impulses which contract the bladder and inhibit the internal sphincter. And sympathetic innervations exactly opposite to parasympathetic. So they carry motor impulses, but they does not contract the bladder or relax the bladder and inhibit the excite the internal sphincter. And somatic motor innervations, the pudendal nerve supplies external sphincters which is voluntary. Okay, so the somatic motor supplies the external sphincters. So it is also called pudendal nerve. So that is voluntary. And next, sensory innervations or afferent innervations. So sensation of bladder distension is felt by the afferents from detrusor stretch receptors to the spinal cord via pelvic splanchnic nerve. Okay, so from the detrusor muscles, the stretch receptors. Okay, so from those receptors, the nerve fibers will start and they will go to the spinal cord via pelvic splanchnic nerves, and from trigone and bladder neck via hypogastric plexus to T11 to T12. Okay, yellow one is the hypogastric plexus. They go to T11 to L2. So these finally reach the pontine and suprapontine micturition centers. Okay, so from detrusor receptors and some from the neck part. These are the pelvic splanchnic and these are the hypogastric plexus from trigone and bladder neck. So the sensation of the bladder pain, pain is stimulated by stone, distension, spasm, inflammation or malignant disease. So these are carried by the lateral spinothalamic tract. So pain and temperature from anywhere carried by the lateral spinothalamic tract. So that we all know. So the urethral sensations reach spinal cord via pudendal nerve. Okay, so from the bladder, the pain is carried by spinothalamic, and from the urethra via pudendal nerve to the spinal cord. This picture shows the motor innervation of the bladder. As you can see, the sympathetic motor efferent connections and the pudendal nerve and the parasympathetic which supplies the bladder and also the neck part, urethral part. So these are the motor innervations. So now we will see the definition of micturition. Micturition is a process by which urinary bladder empties when it becomes filled. It begins in 5th month of intrauterine life. It remains as a reflex up to 2 to 2.5 years of age. And filling, there are two phases in the micturition. One is filling and one is emptying. So filling of bladder progressively occurs till the tension of the wall rises above the threshold. Okay, so till the pressure reaches the threshold value, till that time the process is called filling of bladder. And emptying of bladder is a nervous reflex. The bladder empties by a nervous reflex, so not automatically. So micturition reflex that empties the bladder, or at least conscious desire of urination will be present in the individual. So this picture shows the mode of action or mechanism of action of different nerve supplies. So the first one, parasympathetic supply. So here the neurotransmitter released is ACH or acetylcholine, and it acts through M3 receptors. What it does, it contracts the detrusor. Okay, so positive given, no, it contracts the detrusor and relaxation of the trigone and internal sphincter, resulting in emptying of the bladder. So remember, parasympathetic motor supply causes contraction of the bladder and relaxation of the internal sphincter. So it should be relaxed here. For that, so the emptying of bladder will take place, and the opposite action is by sympathetic. And the neurotransmitter for sympathetic is noradrenaline, and it acts through B3 receptors in the bladder area, detrusor muscle, and in the internal sphincter area it acts through alpha 1 receptors. Okay, so the action is opposite. It causes retention of the urine. And next, the pudendal or somatic nerve. Here also the neurotransmitter released is ACH, and it acts through nicotinic receptor. It holds or excites the external urethral sphincter so that it has voluntary control. It holds the urine. So though the parasympathetic stimulation is present, we can hold the urine by this stimulation of somatic or pudendal nerve. And this is one more table showing the different actions of the nerves. Sympathetic nerve causes relaxation on the detrusor and constriction on the internal, causing filling of the bladder. And parasympathetic nerve causes constriction of detrusor and relaxation of the internal, causing emptying of the bladder. And somatic nerve causes constriction of the external sphincter, and it causes voluntary control of the micturition. So if you remember this table like this, what is the action on detrusor and internal and external, and the function of the nerve supply, you can easily tell the innervation of the bladder. So this is very, very important. So most commonly asked in Viva questions. And first we will see the filling of bladder. So filling of bladder, urine collects in the renal pelvis. The pressure in the pelvis increases, which initiates a peristaltic contraction beginning in the pelvis. It spreads downward along the ureter to force the urine toward the bladder. Okay, so you can see the peristaltic waves occurs 1 to 5 times per minute in the bladder. So the walls of ureters contain smooth muscle arranged in spiral, longitudinal and circular bundles. So this peristaltic waves passes the urine towards the bladder. So urine collects in the renal pelvis. Okay, so the pressure increases and there will be peristaltic contractions. So this will force the urine towards the bladder. And how much is the capacity of bladder? So there is two types of capacity. One is physiological and other is anatomical. In physiological, it varies with age. So at birth it is 20 to 50 ml, and at 1 year 200, and adult capacity is 600 ml. So twice that at which first desire to void is felt. So this adult value 600 ml is twice at which the first desire to void is felt. So that means the first desire to void is felt at how much ml? So it is at 300 ml. So the capacity is 600 ml of adult bladder. And anatomical capacity is beyond which it ruptures. Okay, so the capacity beyond which it ruptures is the anatomical capacity. So it is 1 liter, which is never reached under physiological conditions. And we will see some pressure volume changes in the bladder during filling. So when the bladder is completely empty, the intravesicular pressure is equal to intra-abdominal pressure. So intravesicular means inside the bladder, and that pressure is equal to intra-abdominal when the bladder is empty. So as it fills, it causes adaptation due to inherent property of plasticity. So this is very, very important. This inherent property of smooth muscle, that is detrusor muscle. That muscle is having this plasticity. So it causes adaptation. Plasticity means, you heard this word in nerve physiology, that is nerve plasticities or synaptic plasticity or smooth muscle plasticity. So we have this word many times. So it causes adaptation because of this plasticity. So this is according to the law of Laplace. Okay, P is equal to T by R. Pressure is equal to tension in the wall by radius. So as the pressure is increasing, the tension increases and the radius is inversely proportional to the pressure of the bladder. So next we will see about the cystometrogram. So cystometry is a technique and cystometrogram is a graphical recording. So cystometry is a technique used to demonstrate the relationship between intravesicular pressure and the volume of urine in the bladder. Okay, so the technique which demonstrates the relationship between the pressure and volume. Okay, intravesicular pressure and volume. So we have seen the pressure volume relationship by law of Laplace, that is P is equal to T by R, and that we demonstrated in the graphical form is called cystometrogram. It is a graphical recording of pressure changes in the bladder in relation to rise in the volume of urine. Okay, so this is a graphical recording, normal cystometrogram. So the micturition contractions, as the contractions in the bladder start increasing, or the pressure, intravesicular pressure on the y-axis. So as the pressure is increasing, you can see the volume. Okay, so as the volume is increasing, pressure is increasing, vice versa. So the basal cystometrogram is like this, and the graph goes on like this. Okay, so it's showing acute pressure waves dash spikes caused by micturition reflexes. So these are the spikes which are caused by the micturition reflexes. So the method of recording cystometrogram is by introducing a double lumen catheter into the bladder, and fluid is introduced through one and pressure is recorded through the other. Okay, each time bladder is filled with 50 ml of fluid and change in pressure is noted. That's how the pressure and volume changes are recorded using this double lumen catheter. So this is again intravesicular pressure, centimeters of water, and bladder volume. So first feeling of fullness is felt even at the lowest volume, that is 50 ml, and then first desire to void is felt at 200 or 300. Both are same. It is given differently in different books. And micturition, the sensation of discomfort is felt after 300, and the urgency is felt after or at the level of 400 ml volume. And the normal cystometrogram has three phases. So this cystometrogram is itself a short question. It is very, very important. So theory, both for theory and also practical chart. This is given as a chart for you in practical exam. So you have to answer the questions. So three phases: phase 1A, 1B and 2. So in phase 1A, it is up to 50 ml. The pressure changes are recorded only from 0 to 10 centimeters of water. And phase 1B from 50 to 400 ml. This is entire plateau straight phase is phase 1B. Pressure does not change much and remains at the level of 10 centimeters of water. Okay, you can see 10 centimeter is maintained throughout the phase 1B, and this is because of adaptation or plasticity property of the bladder. Okay, so the bladder wall relaxes how much ever the volume increases up till 400 ml. Next, in phase 2, it starts beyond 400 ml. Pressure changes markedly, triggering the micturition reflex. Okay, so the pressure changes trigger very much the micturition reflex. So voiding contractions rises, pressure more by 20 to 40 centimeter. Okay, the pressure rises. You can see the graph is going up. So the reflex starts and the contractions rises the pressure by 20 to 40 centimeters of water, and after 600 ml urge becomes unbearable. Okay, so after 600 ml it is inevitable, urge becomes unbearable, so the person has to evacuate the bladder immediately. So this is phase 2. So we have phase 1A only till 50 ml and phase 1B 50 to 400, and phase 2 after 400 ml the graph rises up, so in which the triggering of the reflex and contractions increases, so that pressure increases by above the 20 and 40 centimeters of water. So the micturition reflex or emptying of bladder. So it starts by excitation of stretch receptors when the volume reaches more than 300 ml. The pelvic sphincter nerves will be activated, and it is related to the parasympathetic nervous system, and via pelvic nerve it causes contraction of the bladder, and then bladder outlet pulled open, increase in the pressure occurs, and the pudendal impulses nerve inhibited. So why? Because pudendal will cause voluntary contraction of the external. So this has to be inhibited for the micturition to take place. Okay, so micturition process will be taking place. So this is entirely the parasympathetic. Pelvic sphincter nerves carry information to the parasympathetic nervous system, and through the pelvic nerve it causes contraction and bladder outlet is opened, and then the pudendal nerve will be inhibited and the micturition or actual voiding of urine takes place. So this is micturition reflex. So you can write it as a flow chart in diagrammatic way, and flow chart both you should represent in the exam. And response of the micturition reflex is, once reflex is originated, more and more contractions will occur, and pressure increases, stretch increases, and then after some time relax, fatigues, and remains inhibited. This is at the initial stages. And once the reflex becomes strong enough, the stimulation of the pudendal nerve is inhibited, and that's how the micturition process takes place. And higher center influence on micturition. So we have seen till now the normal process of micturition without any higher center influence. If there is higher center influence, what is happening? So this is completely autonomic spinal reflex. So the inhibitory centers for micturition are present in the midbrain and cerebral cortex, which inhibit the micturition by suppressing spinal micturition centers. And facilitatory centers are present in pons and posterior hypothalamus, and these facilitate micturition via spinal centers. Okay, inhibitory centers are present in midbrain and cortex, which inhibit the micturition by suppressing the spinal micturition centers. So the spinal micturition reflex is itself a spinal reflex, right? So that is inhibited by higher centers, so that the micturition process is totally inhibited. And whereas facilitation, the micturition process is facilitated by centers in the pons and posterior hypothalamus. These also facilitate by spinal centers. So spinal centers are the main, but then they are controlled by the higher centers. That is, inhibitory centers are present in midbrain and cerebral cortex, and facilitatory are present in pons and posterior. So if we suppose the urgency for urination is present, but then some people, if we are outside, we can't urinate at any place. We want to urinate only in a washroom, neatly present washroom. So that time, what happens? The higher center comes into action. The inhibitory centers are activated, so that the urine is held in the bladder for some more time. So till the urgency is inevitable, till that time we can hold. That is by the action of higher center. So I hope you understood the meaning of this higher center influence. And then the voluntary control. So micturition reflex is fundamentally a spinal reflex. So it is maintained at the level of spinal cord itself. For every for every voiding of urine, every time you void the urine, there is no need of higher center action. It is taking place at the level of spinal cord itself. So at some times facilitation and inhibition by supraspinal center is present. So the higher centers keep it inhibited all the time. The spinal centers are keep in inhibition all the time by higher centers. So even when micturition reflex can prevent it by continuous contraction of external urethral sphincter. When convenient time is present, higher center facilitates the sacral micturition center, so initiating the micturition reflex and inhibiting the external sphincter. So I told you, when there is convenience of everything, the time and place, everything is convenient, then only higher centers will facilitate the sacral micturition center. Otherwise, it will keep inhibited all the time. Okay, so this is the influence of the higher centers. This is from the pons and the afferent, this is the information is going from the bladder to the pons, and the information is coming from the pons to the bladder. The sacral segments of spinal cord, these are the sacral micturition centers, and you can see the parasympathetic ganglion in the bladder. It controls the somatic motor of the pudendal. Okay, so when there is a facilitation from higher center, then only the micturition takes place by inhibiting the pudendal nerve. And lastly, coming to the applied physiology. So these are various types: atonic, automatic, and uninhibited neurogenic bladder, and urinary incontinence. So what are all these? We will see briefly. So atonic bladder is due to destruction of sensory nerve fibers from the urinary bladder. So this is seen in conditions of syphilis and tabes dorsalis. So these are the diseases of the nerves. So when there is destruction of the sensory nerve fibers in these conditions, so this atonic bladder condition will be present. So due to absence of sensory impulses, the detrusor muscle loses the tone and becomes flaccid. There will be no contraction of the muscle. So the tone of the muscle is lost. So there will be no contraction. So it is also called overflow dimpling, overflow incontinence, and tabetic bladder. So what happens? There will be continuous, the filling of the bladder takes place, and when the bladder is filled over much, there will be dribbling. So automatically, without our consciousness, the urine comes out of the bladder. And automatic bladder it is seen after complete transection of the spinal cord above the sacral segments. The urinary bladder loses the tone and fails to give response to the micturition reflex. The voluntary control of micturition is lost. Whenever the bladder is filled with some amount of urine, there is automatic evacuation of the bladder. So this is also like the previous one, but here what is happening? This is seen in complete transection of the spinal cord. The bladder loses the tone and fails to give response to the micturition reflex. So the voluntary control is also lost, and whenever the bladder is filled with some amount of urine, there is automatic, only if it is filled with some amount, then it is automatically evacuated. In the previous condition where we have seen the bladder will be filled, overflow dribbling, it is overflow. Here only small amount is present, that also will be evacuated automatically. And then uninhibited neurogenic bladder, it is due to lesion in the brainstem. So there will be continuous excitation of spinal micturition centers or sacral micturition centers. So what happens? The frequency of micturition is increased. So what it does, brainstem, it keeps continuously inhibited. But when there is lesion in the brainstem, there is that inhibition is lost. So it continuously excites the micturition center. So there will be frequency. So again and again, the person will feel to urinate. So small quantity of urine collected in the bladder will elicit the micturition reflex. So the bladder does not fill to 300 or 400 ml. Only for 50 ml, the person will go to urination. So that is increased frequency of micturition seen in lesions of brainstem. And nocturnal micturition or enuresis or bedwetting. It is common in infants and children below 3 years. It is because of underdevelopment of voluntary control of micturition, which is due to incomplete myelination of motor nerve fibers of the bladder. When myelination is complete, voluntary control of micturition develops and enuresis stops in these children. So this enuresis can be also controlled by giving training. So main reason is myelination, underdevelopment of voluntary control because of incomplete myelination of the motor nerve fibers. So this, as the age increases, so above 3 years, they can complete myelination will be present, and that time it will be voluntary control will be developed. So that's all for today. I hope you understood. So the micturition reflex, innervation of bladder, and then cystometrogram. So these are the 3 important questions from this topic. And lastly, we have seen some applied aspects. So that will come as a short questions, very short questions, and also asked in Viva. So take for today's assignment these 3 questions: micturition reflex, innervation of bladder, and then cystometrogram. So write these 3 questions in a notebook neatly and send to me in Telegram. So that's all. Thank you all.